for me, I know the pecking order. You got to know valuation. You got to know what your stuff is worth. You got to learn negotiation. You're negotiating constantly. You have to do it like an expert. You have to know the investment value of real estate. That, if I was talking to an investor, those are the next three things that if you have excellence in those three things, it very much upgrades the quality of conversation you have with either other colleagues or customers to show I am equipped. I did the work before I met you to be worthy of your trust to lead. And that's the reason why, going forward, I should be taking the lead in this.
I'm Joel Worthington, and welcome to my podcast, Tell Me More. As a leader of major organizations over the last 20 years, I've had to manage and oversee hundreds of employees of all types, personalities, and belief systems. The most important thing I've learned is that there is not a one-size-fits-all leadership style. You need to understand people, their motivations, their stories, and who they are in order to lead them in a way that works for both you and them. The best way to do that is show interest and ask them to tell me more. In the next stage of my career, I'm a world-class leading consultant on leadership and want to bring the tools, knowledge, and tips to help you as a manager, leader, or C-suite executive to best maneuver through your leadership challenges. Each week, I'll also bring on some extremely successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders to understand their secrets to great leadership as well. Thanks for joining us today. I'm here with real estate coach, national speaker, and author Josh Cadillac, and we're going to dig into building trust through competence and full understanding. So Josh trains real estate professionals on how to close for life by building lasting success through extensive knowledge. And he also has a podcast called Know Your Shit. Now, why do I have Josh on today on a leadership podcast? Well, selling and leading are pretty much one and the same. Salespeople influence someone to buy a product or service, and leaders influence people to buy into them, their ideas, philosophies, systems, processes, new strategic plan, whatever they're doing, leaders are selling as well. And we're both influencing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So good to have you on, Josh.
Totally a pleasure to be here, Joel. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Well, and let's just talk right off the bat about this whole concept of really deep understanding and knowing your stuff, knowing your shit, as you call it. And where did this all happen? And maybe you could start out with what happened when you didn't know your stuff.
I'm not going to lie, Joel. My concern always when I got into real estate was that I was going to walk into a room where the customer knew significantly more than me, and I was going to be nothing more than a glorified order taker.
And so Josh is going to tell us what happened to get you started on this whole understanding of you need to know your shit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to say that fear was the big driver of that. I was always afraid that I was going to go into a room espousing myself to be the expert on real estate and having a customer who actually knew more than me, which meant if my value in this relationship was based upon my expertise in my craft and they knew more than I did, well, what the hell value did I bring to the actual table? It was nothing. And so I very much have been leaning into this idea of leadership, but from the standpoint of an activity I used to do all the time, which was one of my hobbies was ballroom dancing. And in ballroom dancing, as the man, your job is to lead. And when you lead, you initially think, Joel, that as the guy, it's a lot of pushing and pulling to get her where you need her to be. And in reality, it's not. Because one of the experiences I had that I got to tell you, it was kind of awkward and uncomfortable, was they had me dance with another dude who was like a really good dancer, and he led me. And what I found was this guy wasn't pushing or pulling. This guy was just taking away all the other possible options away from me to leave only the options left that they wanted me to pursue, right? So in order to do that, there was this robust understanding of everything that I was experiencing and positioning me in such a way like, Hey, look, I know you're going to want to go this way, and this way. I'm taking those options away. Here's the only way you can go, and I'm going to make you look good going that way. That's what good leadership is, understanding what the other side has got going on and playing this game of chess, this three-dimensional level of chess, where I'm out in front of that and positioning you to be successful because I'm playing at a whole different level of you. I've taken that under my wing, the excellence of understanding to know your part and my part. And so when I didn't understand this at the beginning of my ballroom dancing days, I was thinking about what I had to do. It got to be good. I got to be so much better when I started thinking about where are their feet going to be and how do I get their feet where I need them to be, as opposed to where do I want my feet to go, right? And so I think this robust understanding, people get locked into this idea. It's understanding my job. It's understanding their job, understanding what they're struggling with. And if I was them, how do I get them best to be where I need them to be? Because that's actually probably exactly where they want to be as well.
Wow, that's really great. So how do you do that, and what do you see when you're coaching people? And by the way, I did mention that you are at the top of the real estate game, won lots of awards, so you obviously have figured out how this works. How do you learn this, and then what happens when you don't, when you're not prepared, when you don't understand your customer?
I think that keeping that healthy fear of I don't want to get blown out of a room, being an amateur, I've kept that fear close, right? Because I've recognized that as a tool to help me constantly pursue what I need to do to know this. I think, it's going to be very specific to whatever the person who's listening to this is into. For me in real estate, I know that there's like a couple of hard stops. Once agents get their license, first hard stop, they have to learn the MLS because they have to know how to find the property. Second hard stop, they have to learn how to do the contract because now people see the properties and they want to go put it. So every agent takes the MLS class. They all take the contract class. And then it's a vast sandbox of go figure it out for yourself. And so, like for me, I know the pecking order. You got to know valuation. You got to know what your stuff is worth. You got to learn negotiation. You're negotiating constantly. You have to do it like an expert. You have to know the investment value of real estate. That, if I was talking to an investor, those are the next three things that if you have excellence in those three things, it very much upgrades the quality of conversation you have with either other colleagues or customers to show I am equipped. I did the work before I met you to be worthy of your trust to lead. And that's the reason why going forward, I should be taking the lead in this, because there is always this push-pull with customers. And I think even in business, it's the same thing. Like, why the hell should I listen to you? That's with employees when people are trying to lead, and also with customers. Customers come, yeah, but I saw on Zillow. They don't say I saw on Zillow to me. Just like when I go to dance with a woman, she doesn't try to backlead me because I immediately take control of the situation and make them feel safe that I'll get you where you need to go. I know what it's like to be on their side and be with somebody who doesn't know where they need to go. And so I want to give them that certainty on this side. So I think it's recognizing the places where people's knowledge is not always as robust, and being able to come in and fill in those blanks, have this really strong conversation. Hey, Joel, I know this is what you do, and I'm assuming these are the concerns that you have. These are the things that I found are the best ways to cut these problems off earlier on, so it's going to make your process a little bit easier. Tell me if that jibes with what you're seeing. That would be the kind of conversation that I'd have with somebody, to sit here, hey, look, I wear the long sleeve shirt and the jacket to cover the battle wounds I've got from doing your thing. I know exactly what you're going through. Let me show you what I figured out to take and make sure it's not a problem for you, so that I'm the only one that's got to take and step on the landmine. You don't have to do it as well.
Yeah. So that's really good stuff, Josh. I call this in leadership competence.
Sure.
All right. We have to be competent because trust is the foundation for the relationship. Trust is the foundation for somebody purchasing from you, whether, again, they're purchasing you as a leader, and I'm willing to follow you. And I always talk about two parts of trust, and that's character and then competence. And I think a lot of folks miss one or the other, right?
Sure.
They're so focused on, I know my stuff, but I'm also a jerk. Or, I'm so focused on being Mr. Nice Guy and Mr. Honest and hey, I'm the greatest guy ever. Yeah, but you don't know what you're doing.
Right. I think there's a piece in there. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I mean, as I'm getting it real time, there's a confidence piece in there. That word pisses me off so much, confidence, because when I was a young
Mm,
man and I was trying to ask girls out, and I asked my female friends why I wasn't doing so well, they said to me, "Be more confident," and it's the most true and useless advice I've ever got, because like, okay, sure, let me go do that. Like, I don't know what that means, but I think that there's, from a leadership standpoint, there has to be this controlled confidence in what you know and bring to the table, with an honesty that I don't know everything, right? And so, like,
mm.
I'm willing to learn and listen, but I also know I bring quite a bit to the table, and I don't have to prove that to anybody. But at the same time, I know that I need to prove that to everybody, if that makes sense. It's kind of this
Yep.
weird game. It's kind of like dating. I use a lot of dating analogies when I teach this stuff, Joel. When I sit down across the table, if I'm interested in the person, I want her to walk away with this idea, man, this guy would be a tremendous boyfriend, right? I want to land that idea, but I can't come out and say that either. I can't sit there and say, let me tell you what a tremendous boyfriend I am, because you can't do it, right? So I have to have this confidence that, look, I'm a very good boss to work for. I love my people. I want them to succeed. I'm going to move heaven and hell to take and get you as far as I can, to take and get out of you the potential that I can see is there. And I'm confident that I can do that. I don't need to prove that to you, but at the same time, I understand that in order for you to listen to me, I probably am going to have to prove that to you. And so it's how we do that, the massaging of that information, rather than saying it. I have to land the idea without saying the thing that is really what I'm trying to do. If that makes any logical sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and let's dig into that a little bit because you're talking a lot about technical competence, right? And so, I've spent 20 years in the franchising world running a brand called Mr. Electric. A lot of owners coming in from the business world who didn't know a thing about electrical. And one of their big first questions was, how am I going to, be the leader of this company when I don't know how to change an outlet? Well, the answer is you got to be competent. They don't care if you know how to change an outlet. They know how to change the outlet. What they need you to be competent as, you need to know how to run the business. So you need to know how to market and get them leads. You need to make sure you understand how to manage the call center and get their jobs booked and all the invoicing and payroll and all of those things. That's what they're counting on you for. So that part is huge. But as a real estate agent, there's got to be that, not only that technical skill, but those soft skills as well. What do you think about that, and how do you train and coach to those soft skills as well? Because again, you can know your stuff and be a jerk,
Yeah,
and, and nobody's going to want to listen to you.
totally. No, I mean, it's actually one of the biggest debates that I have in real estate, because there's a component of the education in real estate that comes from, like, the boards, the real estate boards, the local boards, or the state boards, and this tends to be like your college education kind of thing. And then there's a disconnect that exists because there was this whole component of what you're talking about, kind of the dirt under the fingernails kind of training that you get from your broker that used to exist. That, because of the way the nature of the business has changed, brokerage splits have gotten a lot slimmer for the broker. Brokers now focus much more on recruiting than they used to, and a lot less on training. And so
Mm.
what the net result has been is there's not a lot of this soft skill, like, hey, Joel says this to me. What do I say back to have him not get pissed off, but at the same time, take the message? Like, there's lots of ways of, well, Joel, we can't do that. I say, instead of saying something like funny, to land the. You say to me, well, Josh, I just want 500,000. Well, Joel, I want to be taller and better looking, but just because we want something doesn't mean we always get it. You know what I mean, Joel? And I make you chuckle a little bit, and I land the same idea that just because you want something doesn't mean. So it could be a war or it could be friendly. I'll give you a prime example of this. One of the big changes that came because of the NAR settlement is now all agents have to sign a buyer agreement with any buyer before they show them any real estate. I can't show you a house. I can't show you anything without this agreement. And this agreement's going to stipulate how much compensation I'm going to get for doing my thing. Right? So most agents are saying, well, I work hard and you should pay me and all this kind of stuff. I don't go there at all. I'm going to say this to you. Like, you're going to say to me, Josh, why do I have to sign this? Joe, because some sleazy attorney in Missouri saw a huge fat paycheck in suing NAR and not caring about what it's like to buy a house for you or what it's like to sell a house for me as an agent. They didn't give a rat's ass about that. You wonder what they saw? They were going to get paid. So now they forced the situation where there's this settlement where now I got to ask you to sign a form that you really don't want to sign. And I frankly don't want to ask you to sign. But because of that jerk, we're both stuck in a situation where I need to have this in my file or I get in big trouble if I try to show you this house. So Joel, I'm sorry I got to ask you this, but this is what we got to do. In other words, I get on the same side of it as you. It's the exact same problem. But it's the soft skills of how do I mitigate this and frankly not start conflict early in our relationship to sit here and say, Joe, we're in the same boat with the stupid doc. I wish I didn't have to ask you to sign it, but we're stuck, right?
Yeah.
There's so many, and that's just an example of kind of that soft skill of doing the exact same thing in a way that gives you fewer conflict points where you're butting heads with your client, where it's more arm around the shoulder. Hey, look, this is where we are. This is how we got to get. We're both trying to get the same place. How do we get there? And that is very much missing in a lot of real estate. And so figuring out how we bring more of that in has been one of the big things. But you're right. It's this soft skill of leading the customer. Again, I've taken the option away from you to be mad at me because I'm not making you sign the doc. It's that stupid auditor that's going to come in and look at my file that's making me have to sign this doc. That's stupid. Everybody wants to be mad at attorneys. The guy made 200 plus million on the thing. He could take the rap for it, right? And so I think that's what you're talking about. And I think it's one of the places where a lot of this education that we have, a lot of the keynotes and all this kind of stuff, they leave this boots on the ground, gritty, in the trenches stuff out. And it's a big hole in industry, I think, that needs to be filled.
Yeah, you said some interesting things because what you just described is transparency.
Sure.
And you said earlier that you want the customer to be in a safe place. You're trying to get this person to buy into you. Doesn't mean you're going to sell them the home for whatever they want, right? The house is selling for 500,000. You're not going to go, okay, well, let's do it for 200,000, right? I mean, obviously, right. The owners are not going to accept that bid. So you're not being a weak real estate agent. You're just allowing the people to have that trust, that confidence in you, be a safe place, know by, hey, this guy's not, he's being straight up front with me right out of the gate. This is a stupid form. He doesn't like it. So leaders often, you said not to butt heads. And that's exactly what a lot of people think of leadership, right? Because they forget that they need buy-in as well, especially in today, because if we rub our customer, being our employee, wrong, they're just going to go look for another job. Sure. Doesn't mean we can't be firm.
Right.
But if we can be transparent, build that trust, and we have a degree of trust in people and understand, I believe most people want to do a good job. So if I believe in them, help them be comfortable, they're going to do a good job. And I'm going to believe in them until they prove me wrong.
Sure.
And when they prove me wrong, you're going to go I'm going to give you a new opportunity pretty quick because we're not fooling with that stuff. But it plays right into that. So you said that I assume you experience some real estate agents, you said, that start out that conversation all wrong. You mentioned earlier knowing what the customer wants. Tell me more about how you how you determine what this customer wants and how you're
Okay,
going to get what they
so
want.
I'm going to give you a little recipe that I use, and then I'm going to take and I'm going to try to apply it to a customer that I don't know. So I'm going to try to apply it to a new middle manager coming in to take a department with this recipe, and we'll spitball it together because this is actually how I do business. My formula is pretty simple. Anticipate. I anticipate what they're going to think. Empathy. If I was in their shoes, how would I feel? And then 3, pre-negotiate. I do things to take the things that I don't want on the table off the table before they get a chance to come up. So I'm a new middle manager coming into a department. Would it be reasonable to expect distrust and uncertainty from the people that I'm coming in to lead? I'm totally gonna expect a new ball. Oh God, what are they gonna be like? What are they gonna mess up? Well, how are they gonna change? What are they gonna do? What extra work are they gonna want from me? I mean, how am I doing so far?
Yep, great.
And so, how am I gonna take and handle this up front? Because here's what I want to do. I want to knock those pins down before they get a chance to bring them up. Hey guys, I just want you to know on the way in the door, I love what you've been doing. You guys, I mean, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to try to lead this department. I'm going to need a lot of help from you guys to make sure that we can be as successful as we want to be. I got to tell you, the place that I come from, we work as a family. We pull together. So if you need me, you've got me. And I will always have your back every step of the way. All that politics and stuff that goes on in other departments, that's not how we do it. We bleed together wherever I work. So like stuff like that, right? So start off and sit here and say, like, I had to do this in one of my restaurants. So maybe this would be a good example I could give. I had these restaurants, a couple of Italian restaurants, and the biggest problem I had, we did a little bit of lunch business. Lunch really time was for prep. We did a killer dinner business at these places, right? And the problem always was at nighttime, everybody's complaining about how day shift didn't get done all the prep they needed, so we were running out of stuff. So I always would work the night shifts because that's when all the action was, right? So at some point I was like, you know what? This is crap. I'm going to work day shift and night shift for a while. I'm going to get this crap sorted out. So I came in there, and obviously the guys that I had on day shift were all like the worst employees that I had as well, because you need the rock stars when the bullets are flying, right?
Yeah.
So I went in there right away, guys. We are freaking day shift. Nobody says anything about the people on day shift. We're the ones that are always righteous. We're going to bury those guys in night shift with everything they need. Only complaints they're going to be getting is all the stuff they're supposed to do that they're going to leave for us that we're then going to complain about them for. We're righteous. Nobody. Within a week, all the complaints were gone because I was in there, our sleeves torn off the shirts. Let's get this done. Could we do an extra? Let's do an extra batch. Let's make sure there's not an inch in that walk-in that's not full of stuff for these guys, right? And they bought into it, and they're excited, and they're walking by me like freaking day shift, bro, and bumping fists with me and stuff like that because we created this culture of what used to be the scrubs. Now these are the guys. They're proud of what they do because nobody messes with them, and it was just because being willing to get in there, being willing to understand what's got to be done, and showing them that, hey, look. I'm going to be proud of you guys, and I'm going to be part of this with you. But it started with not asking them to do more. It started with casting a vision of what would it be like if they never could complain about you because you're just so damn good at what you do.
There you go. Casting a vision. That's awesome. So you started right with the destination. Let's go here. And I'm not forcing you to go here. I'm going to sell you on going here, right? Get you excited about it. I love it. You said empathy, right? That you empathize. How does the person feel? Tell me more about how you've used empathy in leadership and in real estate sales.
Sure. So, I mean, my expectation with a customer is when I meet them and they find I'm in real estate, they think that I'm lazy, not very smart, overpaid, and the only thing I care about is getting paid. The most close thing they're going to liken me to is a used car salesman. That is my expectation. That's what I anticipate on the way in the door. One of the famous sayings in real estate, Joel, is buyers are liars. Buyers are liars because agents have done nothing to show people that they're worthy of the truth. So I fix that first. So my empathy is, if I was going to a used car salesman, the used car salesman walks up and says, "Hey, see you looking at the car. How much money you got to spend on a car?" I'm not going to tell that guy how much money I actually have because I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. So that's my empathy.
Right.
I am starting with the mindset, not only do they not trust me, they have every good reason in the world not to trust me. Let me give them every reason in the world to trust me. In other words, I am going to I'm going to set my expectations off at the worst setting they could be and do damage control from there, because if their opinion of me is better than that, I'm pleasantly surprised. But if it's as bad as I think, I'm not disappointed. And my actual approach is set up to start from there. My initial approach is set up from, hey, these guys are going to distrust me. They're not going to want to tell me the truth, all this stuff. How do I have the conversation that pre-negotiates that off the table? So my conversation with you, Joel, if you were a real estate customer, is going to sound radically different than how agents are actually trained. My conversation is going to say, "Oh, wow, Joel, you're looking to do something in real estate? All right. Well, look, in the market that we're in right now, here's the stuff that I'd be worried about, Joel. This is the stuff. These are the places you could lose money. These are the places where if you do it well, you could do well for yourselves." And Joel, you're going to have to take it with a grain of salt because you know I'm an agent, right? I'm going to suggest you should definitely get an agent. Here's the thing is, Joel, there's a lot of agents that are bozos. I mean, they're absolute losers. So any agent that's doing this, they're a loser. They're a bozo. Just don't go with them. What you're looking for is an agent that's doing this. These are the indicators. I've learned this because I've had to hire agents all over the country. These are the indicators of a good agent. And in the market that we're in, I'm not going to ask you for business right there. I would never ask you for business right there, because if I asked you for business right there, Joel, I just went from giving you great advice from somebody who does this for a living to a sales pitch. And I know if I give you a sales pitch, I've lost you. It immediately degrades the quality of the information that I've given you. I'm immediately going to launch into a conversation that's at least an hour in length, talking about what's going on in the market right now and where I think the opportunities are and what to stay away from. I'm never going to ask you for business. But what I'm going to clearly do is show you there's a vast differential between what you know and what I know about how this thing is. And you'd really like to have a guy like me on your team, so that the way that conversation usually ends for me, Joel, is, well gee, it sounds like you know this a lot. Would you be able to help us?
All right.
The phone call I got off of right before this was I was interviewing an attorney to do my 506c filing for my fund. When we got on there, we were so as to whether we needed this guy. By the time we were done, we're like, we would be out of our freaking mind not to have this guy involved in what we do. And he just had this wonderful conversation with us, making sure we didn't make any mistakes. And he didn't even freaking charge us for the call, Joel. But it was the best sales call ever. Let me show you how I could look out for you. Then you decide whether or not you want somebody like me on your side looking out for you, or if you want some other bozo doing it. Your choice. I don't pitch me. I don't have to. I'm confident enough in what I know to know that I could help you if that's what you want. But I don't have to push that. I can lead. It's an interesting thing, Joel. I've many times been, people have asked me to dance, right? Because they know I can dance. And I'll have a woman say to me, "Oh, you probably don't want to dance with me. I backlead." The second I put her in dance position, that problem is solved. Because the way I take dance position, she immediately feels there is no place left for her to have to lead. And that is exactly what I try to do in my sales conversation, because that is frankly what that customer actually wants from me. They want to hire a freaking expert. If I take that role, I take the requirement away from them of having to know all this crap, and they can just put themselves in my hands and say, "Josh, what should we do?" That's where they want to be, desperately. But I have to give them a person they can respect and trust enough to do that with.
That's awesome. Because not asking for the business, which, by the way, is, as you know, is one of the primary things that all salespeople are taught to do. Ask for the business, right? You hear the stats. The number one reasons that salespeople don't sell more is because they don't ask for the business. And you flip the script on all of that because you're influencing the customer to ask you for the business.
Absolutely.
That is all. And that's what leaders do, right?
Yeah. If at the end they don't, that's where you make the soft pitch
Yeah.
there and say, and by the way, look, I mean, it's what I do for a living, but I don't have to put my thumb on the scale of like, the information that I give you. Here's my card. If you need it, I'm always a resource. Even if you want to use somebody else and you have a question or whatever, feel free. But if you want to use me, I'd be happy to help you as well. You can always end that way because it's more respectful, right? I respect the fact that they're sold to so much. I don't want to be another one of those guys. It's the equivalent. As I said, I use a lot of dating analogies, right, Joel? If I've watched that girl at the bar get hit on by 50 guys that she shot down, am I really going to walk up there and say, hey, baby, what's your sign? Look, I'm asking to be shot down. I'm going to walk up and say, hey, look, you know what? I've watched 50 guys come up here, but you can't even enjoy your stinking drink. Why don't you come to my table over here, sit down with me. I'll keep the flies away, and I won't bother you, and maybe we'll have a nice conversation along the way. That way you can at least get through your drink. Acknowledge the fact that they're getting sold to all the stinking time, and don't be that.
Yeah. Well, you said another great word for leadership, respect. When people feel respected, they're drawn to the person that's showing them the respect, right? And now they're moving towards you rather than you having to push your way on those, which is classic leadership, right?
Yep.
People thinking that they're the boss. They're going to tell everybody what to do. They've got to demand you do X, Y, Z rather than leading them to want to do that. And now you get so much more energy out of your employees, right? When they want to do it, because now you've got their heart, you've got their passion. You're not telling them, you're selling them. They want you. I want to do a great job, not because you forced me to, but because you're respecting me, you're empathizing with me, you're competent, I can trust you, you've made a safe space. I'm not having to look over my shoulder wondering whether I'm going to get in trouble. I'm just trying to blow it out, man, and be creative, and that's what we want our people to do.
Having the confidence to give wins to other people, having the confidence, like I don't need it to be a win. You're on my team, you win, we win. That's fine. Like I'm calling you out. And I mean, just going out of your way to do those little things to let people know that they're valuable. It's little stuff, but I mean, that's that respect piece of it, right? That empathy comes from your respect. This is another human being. They have reasonable concerns built from the brain damage they've gotten from other people and how other people did it. I don't care how you do it. Their perspective is skewed by the way other people have treated them. I call this middle-aged dating. If I go out on a date with a woman right now who's in my age group, I know I am dealing with pain and damage caused by other bad relations. There's no way anybody's gotten to my age that they don't have brain damage they picked up from somebody else, and I'm going to have to deal with the fallout from that, and it's not right. But you know what? I understand, even though it's not right, that's the job I signed up for. You want to be a leader, you're going to have to deal with the brain damage these folks picked up from other bad leaders who've mistreated and abused them. So go in there, think about what the worst possible brain damage they could have picked up is, and prepare yourself for that, and be okay with taking the lumps, because there is probably a beautiful, wonderful, incredible, talented, productive person behind all that crap. But it's going to take somebody who's got broad enough shoulders to take a few hits to get to it. Sign up for the suck, because the suck is what you got to get through to get to the good stuff.
I love it. I love it. Hey, you have your worst case example of somebody who just did it all wrong. Anything come to mind?
Oh man, most of the people who've done it all wrong get out of the business when it's my business. They can't do it. I mean, I've had some very talented people, very, very good. And I put them in a role, that Peter principle. You get them just a little bit past their competence level, and it just falls off. They just, all this skill, all this beauty, it just falls apart. They're misused tools, and you could see a lot of this actually when it was done really well was in World War II. With the military, there's a policy like if you screw up as like a commander, you're done. They relegate you to Siberia, right? In World War II, they didn't do that to people. They fail someplace. They give them another assignment someplace. Maybe they put them in Siberia for a little while, but they bring them back and give them another chance to shine, like 2 or 3 times. And some of our best leaders were people that failed in certain places and then came back like rock stars. Ulysses S. Grant was one of those guys back in the Civil War. He had a setback. They blamed him for it. They gave him a chance to come back, and man, did he ever come back, right? And so I think that if you're in a leadership position and trying to put people in these roles, giving people the permission to fail and give them daylight to there will be another opportunity, provided you can show me that you're not going to take and make the same mistake again, like you've learned from this, is part of it. So I would say that in real world context, let me take and give you a leader that was a really bad leader that I know, which was me as a young man. My father, when I was 13 years old, I started working for him when I was 9. When I was 13, he put me in front of a crew of four grown men. I'm a 13-year-old kid trying to get 4 grown men to lead, and a little bit of Chihuahua syndrome, a little bit of, I got to show these guys, I got to be tough, and all this kind of stuff. And it was more than what was needed. I learned that being a humble leader that was there before they showed up every day and still working when they left did a lot more than yelling, screaming, and all the other crap.
Yeah.
And so showing them that they got, maybe the best example I could give you is this story. There's a famous Marine named Chesty Puller. And Chesty Puller was famous for some of the unbelievably brutal training he would do with his troops. But his troops were the best of the best, right? This is a guy in World War II. They said, Chesty, they flanked us in the left and the right, and they're behind us and in front of us. He's like, perfect. They can't get away from us now. That's who this guy was, right? He was that Marine. So there's this famous march that he did. It was a 30-mile march that he had these guys, 30 miles, right? At the end of this march that Chesty Puller made them go through, no one would complain about their feet, their blisters, all this other, but nobody was complaining about Chesty. And the reason why was they asked him, why aren't you complaining about the guy that made you do this? They're like, are you kidding? That guy must have marched 50 miles, marching up and down the line, making sure every guy was okay.
That's awesome.
Those guys would have marched through a wall for that guy. So how do you be like that? How do you get to be like Patton's people were, where he asked them to do the impossible and they were proud to do it?
Yeah. Well, I love it. Good stuff. I think the theme is competence matters. So I want to ask everybody watching, where do you need to work on? What do you need to work on? Is it your soft skills and in the empathy department and in working with your people, creating that safe zone? Is it knowing your stuff? Do you not know your stuff and you're relying on, well, I got smart people, and I'm not saying you've got to know all the details of everything, but you got to know how the business runs, whatever business you're in, you got to know it. Great example of, we don't want to focus on our weaknesses, but there's some things that are non-negotiables. Let's go with tree and plant life. A tree needs sunlight, water, and rain. I'm sorry if you say you're weak on the rain part, and we're just going to not worry about that rain part. Not very competent in the water part. Okay, well, great. Your tree is dead, dude. It's not going to survive. So there are certain things you have got to be competent at, no matter what position you hold. What are they? And are you constantly working on your skill? Because the minute you stop, somebody asked me one time, I was trying to get our team to do role play and build our team. And they said, what do you think? Our team sucks? And I was like, no, but I think Tiger Wood at the height of his career had a coach and he was constantly working on getting better. And that's what we all need.
Joel, I got to stop you for a second because I just love what you said there. And I just want to, if you don't mind me piling on for just a second.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You have to give the people that you want to follow you something to respect, right? And that doesn't have to be the same thing. And so, like, there's a broker that I know. This guy, I'm not even sure if he knows how to fill the contract out. I know he doesn't know the bookkeeping. He doesn't know the numbers. He has great people he's hired to handle that part. But if you want to sit across from somebody who has amazing presentation, negotiation skills, and will call you on your BS and help you to get the best out of you, I've never met anybody better. There are very few people that I respect that can get me to perform higher than how I push myself on my own. But this is a guy that'll sit there and say, "Hey, Josh, you should do a class on this." And I'm like, in my head, I don't want to do that. Why should I do? Ah, crap, I should probably do that, huh? And it gets me to do more than I otherwise would.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the piece, right? You don't have to look like another leader, but you must have something that the people below you can point to and say, man, this person is awesome. Like, maybe they don't know the books or whatever, but man, I respect how good they are at this thing. And that's why they're there. If they can't point to that's why they're there, they're wondering why they're not there. And that's not a good place to be in.
Yeah, that is awesome. Man, I love it. Thank you, Josh, for your wisdom. Such great stuff. And for everybody watching, go out and hey, work on your competence.
Yeah.
So don't just read the book, learn the book, know the book, study the book, teach somebody else what you learned in the book so that you can actually build your competence and not just go through the motion, right? Get good at what you do. And part of that is, if you're a leader, it's leading. Do you understand how to lead? And if you enjoyed the podcast today, then subscribe to the channel. And we're going to keep talking about leadership and have great people on like Josh so that you can work on your craft and your competence, and we can grow in this wonderful place to be as a leader. So thanks for joining us. Thank you, Josh.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Joel.